Okay, so deploying applications, it can be kind of like walking through a minefield sometimes, right? You got code. You got servers. And like somewhere in between, there's a whole lot of ways for things to go sideways. But what if there was like a way to make that process as smooth as like, I don't know, ordering takeout? Well, that's what we're going to be looking at today. We're doing a deep dive into Epinio. A platform that's claiming to do exactly that.
It is a bold claim, right? But what we're seeing from this API Days Hong Kong 2023 presentation is that Epinio just might be onto something. Olivier and Enrico, both from SUSE. Really lay out a vision for simplifying that journey from code to a live application. Especially in the world of Kubernetes.
So this is not just another deployment tool. This is aiming to like change how we do this completely.
It's definitely aiming high. You see, application deployment has gone through
some major transformations. We've gone from, you know, the dark ages of physical servers. Endless ticketing system.
I've been there.
To the cloud.
I've been there too.
But even with all the advancements, there's still a lot of complexity involved.
Any developer who's like ever had to like grapple with deployment scripts and server configurations can totally relate to that.
Absolutely.
Still complex.
And the thing is, you know, there's different stakeholders involved. Each with their own priorities. Developers are all about speed and agility. They want to use the tools they like, spin up environments really quickly, and see their code come to life.
Like give them that easy button experience, but for deploying complex applications.
Exactly. But then you have the operations teams who are responsible for keeping everything running smoothly.
They're focused on stability, security, and making sure that those applications perform well under pressure.
It's like, I don't know that the difference between a band writing a killer song and a sound engineer making sure that it sounds great live on stage.
Exactly.
Like, both are essential.
For sure.
But they're coming at it from different angles.
They have different needs and perspectives.
Totally.
That's a great analogy. And that's where Kubernetes comes into the picture. It's been a game changer. It's standardized how we manage infrastructure and made really complex tasks more manageable.
So it's like a powerful engine. But you still need a skilled driver to operate it.
And this is where the concept of platform as a service, or PaaS, comes in. The idea behind PaaS is to give that easy button experience for deploying applications, especially to the cloud.
So PaaS is like having a chauffeur for your Kubernetes engine.
That's the idea.
You tell them where you want to go. They handle all the technical details.
But traditional PaaS solutions haven't always lived up to that promise. They can be very rigid, locking you into specific cloud providers or ways of doing things.
So you trade ease of use for flexibility. That's a tough compromise.
As Kelsey Hightower famously said, most people managing infrastructure actually want to own their PaaS.
You want to be able to
build the power
themselves
to customize it to their specific needs.
So they want the chauffeur and the ability to like get under the hood and tinker. If they need to.
And this brings us to Epinio. It's trying to find that sweet spot between the two worlds. They call it the Individual Platform Developer Approach, or IDP.
IDP. All right, I'll admit the acronym needs some work.
That's growthy.
But what's the core idea behind it? How are they trying to strike that balance?
What's fascinating is that Epinio isn't trying to reinvent the wheel. It leverages a lot of the tools that developers are already familiar with, like Kubernetes Helm, Docker. It even supports different cloud providers, like AWS.
So it's not like forcing you to learn this whole new set of technology.
It's not about integrating existing tools. It's about creating a workflow that empowers developers to be self-sufficient. While still giving the operations teams the control and the visibility they need.
So it's like giving developers their own mini Ps tailored to their needs, but within like a framework that ensures that things stay managed.
Exactly. And this is where the concept of flexibility really comes into play. Epinio is designed to adapt to different environments and user preferences.
Okay.
You can use the default storage and Docker registry options, or you can easily switch to external providers like S3.
Okay.
It even supports different authentication mechanisms.
Okay.
So you can integrate with your existing single sign-on systems.
So it's flexible on the back end.
Right.
But how does this actually translate to the developer experience?
Yeah.
What does this individual platform actually look like in practice?
You're a developer who wants to deploy a new web application with Epinio.
Yeah.
You could use the command line to push your code directly from your Git repository, triggering an automated build and deployment process.
All right.
Or if you prefer a more visual approach, you could use the web UI to configure your application and monitor its status.
So you're saying I've got options.
You have options. It's like having different control panels for your mini passes, so you can choose the one that fits your workflow.
But wouldn't all this flexibility make things kind of chaotic?
That's where the opinionated part of the IDP approach comes in.
Okay.
Epinio might be flexible, but it's not a free-for-all.
Okay.
It leans heavily on standards and best practices to ensure consistency and reliability.
So it's like a set of guardrails to keep you on track.
Exactly.
Even though you have the freedom to choose your own path.
Exactly. For example, Epinio utilizes Helm, which is a popular package manager for Kubernetes. Helm lets you define complex application architectures using YAML templates, which are basically...
So you're not writing like cryptic scripts from scratch.
Right.
You're working with predefined standardized templates.
Right. And Epinio even provides a standard app chart that handles the essentials for deploying most applications. This chart takes care of things like setting up deployments for scaling, creating an ingress to make your app accessible from the outside world, and defining a service to expose it within the cluster.
So it's like a pre-built foundation for your application.
Exactly.
You can customize it to your specific needs, but you don't have to worry about its basic plumbing.
Exactly. And if you need something more specialized, you can always create your own Helm charts and still deploy them through Epinio. So you get the best of both worlds. Standardization and customization.
This is starting to paint like a really interesting picture for me.
Yeah.
But let's get real for a sec.
Yeah.
Deploying an application isn't just about like getting the code onto a server.
Right.
Usually there's a bunch of dependencies involved.
For sure.
Like databases, message queues, other external services.
Absolutely.
How does Epinio handle this often messy part?
That's a great point.
At the process.
And it's one of the areas where Epinio really shines. Remember how we talked about developers wanting self-service and operations teams needing control?
Yes.
Well, Epinio addresses this with its service catalog.
Service catalog. Okay. So tell me more about this service catalog.
Think of it.
Is it like a menu of pre-approved services?
Like a self-service.
The developers can choose
for a marketplace for all the essential ingredients your application might need. Databases like MongoDB, Redis, PostgreSQL, MySQL, message queues like RabbitMQ, you name it.
So instead of going through like that lengthy ticketing process or begging the operations team to provision a database, developers can just pick what they need from this catalog and spin it up themselves.
And the beauty is that operations teams can curate and customize this catalog, ensuring that the services offered meet their security and compliance requirements.
So it's like a win-win.
Exactly.
Developers get the speed and agility. Operations teams retain control and oversight.
It is.
I'm really liking this individual platform developer concept.
It's a pretty clever approach. And it goes beyond just deploying applications. Epinio also provides tools to help developers manage and troubleshoot those applications once they're running.
Because even the smoothest deployment isn't going to matter.
Absolutely.
If you can't figure out what's going on when things go wrong.
Yeah, and this is where features like logging, remote debugging, and the ability to open interactive shells within running containers become incredibly valuable.
So it's not just about getting the application up and running. It's about giving developers the tools to understand what's happening and to have control over what's happening under the hood.
And speaking of control, let's talk about authentication and multi-tenancy, which are crucial aspects of any modern deployment environment. You need to make sure that the right people have access to the right resources and that different teams can work independently without stepping on each other's toes.
Especially important when you have multiple teams or projects all sharing the same infrastructure.
So how does Epinio handle this?
How do they do it?
Epinio offers a range of options when it comes to authentication. You can start with basic authentication using Kubernetes secrets, but it can also integrate with more sophisticated solutions like DEX, an OpenID Connect provider.
Hold on. OpenID Connect. That's a mouthful. For those of us who aren't security experts. Can you break down why this is important?
OpenID Connect lets Epinio integrate with a variety of single sign-on platforms, AWS, MML, Google, GitHub, many others.
So you can use your existing...
This means you can leverage your existing identity infrastructure instead of creating separate user accounts for Epinio.
So it's you're using your existing driver's license to access different services. Instead of having to get a separate ID card. For each one. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. What about multi-tenancy?
That's where roles and namespaces come in. Epinio uses roles like admin and regular user to control access to different parts of the platform. Admins have full permissions, while regular users are limited to their own namespaces.
So it's like having different apartments in a building.
Exactly.
Each team gets their own space. But the building management, the operations team, can still control access and make sure everything's running smoothly.
And the role-based access control can get even more granular when combined with the DEX. You can map users to roles based on their group memberships, giving you very fine-grained control.
So it's different levels of access within each apartment?
Exactly.
You could have roommates who can access everything. You could have guests who are only allowed in certain areas.
It is.
That's a pretty powerful way to manage security and permissions.
And it ties into the overall philosophy of Epinio giving developers the flexibility they need while still ensuring security and control.
I'm really liking this approach. It seems like they've thought a lot about how to make application deployment both powerful and user-friendly. But let's dig into some of the specifics. One of the things that stood out to me in this presentation was this emphasis on the 12-factor app methodology. Can you remind me what that is?
Of course.
And why it's relevant to Epinio?
The 12-factor app methodology is essentially a set of best practices for building cloud-native applications that are portable, scalable, and resilient.
So it's not just about throwing code over the wall and hoping for the best.
Exactly.
It's about designing applications.
It's about thinking about things like configuration management.
With the cloud in mind from the very beginning.
Dependency isolation. Statelessness. And Epinio is designed to encourage and support those principles.
Can you give me an example of how Epinio implements some of these 12-factor principles?
One key principle is storing configuration in the environment. This means your application's configuration. Things like database credentials or API keys shouldn't be hard-coded into the code. They should be passed in as environment variables.
So it's keeping the settings for your application separate from the application itself.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
And Epinio provides a simple and a secure way to manage environment variables for your applications. You can set them through the CLI, the web UI, or even define them in your Helm charts. When your application is deployed, Epinio injects these environment variables into the running containers.
So it's Epinio acts as a secure vault.
Exactly.
For your application's sensitive information.
Exactly.
Making sure it's only accessible to the application itself.
And this is just one example of how Epinio embodies the 12-factor principles. It also encourages using a single code base with version control. Oh, right.
Designing for horizontal scalability.
Okay.
And treating logs as event streams.
So it's not just about providing the tools.
It's about promoting...
It's about promoting a mindset.
A way of building applications that aligns with modern cloud-native best practices. And this brings us to another important aspect of Epinio.
Okay.
The build process.
The build process. Oh, yes. Yeah. That often dreaded step where you turn your code into something that can actually run on a server.
Yeah. Epinio takes a clever approach to building applications.
Okay.
It utilizes a technology called cloud-native build packs.
Cloud-native build packs.
Or CNBs.
CNBs. Okay. That rings a bell. Remind me how those work.
Think of CNBs as specialized chefs who know exactly how to prepare different types of dishes. They automatically detect the programming language you're using. Execute the appropriate build steps.
Package everything neatly into a container image and push it to your designated registry.
So it's like having an automated kitchen that knows
it's a great analogy.
How to cook your code into this delicious, ready-to-serve meal, no matter what ingredients you're using.
Exactly. And Epinio takes over seamlessly after the build process, using the defined app chart to deploy the freshly baked container image to your Kubernetes cluster.
So it's like having the waiter who takes that delicious meal from the kitchen and serves it to your customers.
Exactly.
Which in this case are your users.
It's a streamlined workflow. From code to running application. All powered by these clever technologies working behind the scenes.
This all sounds incredibly impressive, but I'm curious about the actual tools that developers use to interact with Epinio.
Sure.
Is it all command line interfaces and cryptic configuration files?
That's a great question.
Or is there something more user-friendly?
Epinio caters to both command line aficionados and those who prefer a more visual approach. It provides a cross-platform CLI that gives you complete control over the platform.
So for those of us who love our keyboards and prefer the power and flexibility of the command line, Epinio's got us covered.
Absolutely. The CLI lets you do everything from creating and managing applications to configuring services and troubleshooting deployments. But if you're more comfortable with a graphical interface, Epinio also has a web UI that makes deploying and managing applications a breeze.
Options are always good.
Yes.
Okay, tell me more about this Epinio push command.
It is.
That's mentioned in the presentation.
Surprisingly simple.
It sounds almost too good to be true.
With just one command, Epinio push, you can upload your code, trigger a build, and deploy the resulting application. And you have multiple options for how you provide the code. You can load it from your local file system, pull it from a Git repository, like GitHub or GitLab, or even use a pre-built image if you've already taken care of the build process.
So it streamlines what might normally be a multi-step process into a single command, regardless of how you've structured your project.
And this is where Enrico's demo from the presentation really shines.
I love a good demo.
He showcases how easy it is.
Take us through it.
To take an application...
What are the key steps?
From source code to a live URL using Epinio's web UI. He starts by selecting the source code, which in this case comes from a GitHub repository. Then he fills in some basic configuration details, like the application name and the number of instances to run. Epinio handles the build process automatically, showcasing those cloud-native build packs in action. Once the build is complete, the application is deployed, and Enrico accesses it through a live URL generated by Epinio.
So it's literally a few clicks.
Yeah, it's really slick.
And you have a running application.
And the web UI goes beyond.
I can see why developers would be excited about this.
Just deploying applications. It also provides tools to help you manage and monitor those applications once they're running.
So what kind of features are we talking about here?
Well, you have a dashboard that gives you an overview of all your applications and services. A service catalog where you can provision databases and other dependencies, and detailed application views that provide insights into logs, scaling options, and even the ability to open a shell into the running container for debugging.
So it's not just the deployment tool, it's a comprehensive platform for managing the entire life cycle of your applications from development to production.
And for those who prefer a more integrated experience, Enrico mentions that Epinio also integrates with Rancher, a popular Kubernetes management platform.
So if you're already using Rancher,
right,
you can manage your Epinio applications right within the familiar Rancher UI.
It's about providing flexibility and choice. Whether you prefer the CLI, the web UI, or integration with an existing platform.
This is all incredibly fascinating.
Yeah.
But let's zoom out for a moment. You talk about like the bigger picture. What does Epinio's approach mean for the future of application deployment? Especially in this like rapidly evolving cloud native landscape.
That's a great question, and one that's not easy to answer definitively. The tech world is constantly changing.
When what's cutting edge today might be commonplace tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
But here's what I find particularly interesting about Epinio. It represents a potential shift in how we think about building and deploying applications. It's moving away from those monolithic PayCOS solutions that try to be everything to everyone. And embracing a more modular and adaptable approach.
So it's like building with Legos.
Exactly.
Instead of trying to sculpt something out of a single block of marble, you have these individual pieces that can be combined and reconfigured in different ways.
And that modularity
to create something unique
is crucial. Because it allows platforms like Epinio to evolve with the changing needs of developers and organizations. But let's not get too carried away with the hype. No technology is perfect.
And Epinio is no exception.
Of course.
There are definitely some potential downsides or challenges.
What are some of those that come to mind?
Well, one potential challenge is the learning curve. While Epinio tries to make things as simple as possible, it's still built on top of Kubernetes. Which can be pretty complex. So some familiarity with Kubernetes concepts would definitely be helpful. Even though Epinio abstracts away a lot of the complexity.
So it's like having a car with automatic transmission.
Exactly.
It's easier to drive than a manual. But you still need to understand the basic principles of driving.
And another thing to keep in mind is that Epinio is relatively new compared to some other deployment solutions. It's a rapidly evolving project, which is exciting, but it also means that things can change quickly.
So early adopters need to be comfortable with like a little bit of flux, maybe even contributing to the project.
And this ties into another potential challenge, community support. While Epinio has a growing and active community, it's not as large as some of the more established projects.
So you might not find as many ready-made solutions.
You might have to roll up your sleeve.
For specific questions online.
And figure things out on your own sometimes. But the flip side is that the community is very welcoming and responsive. If you run into issues, you're likely to get help quickly from the core developers or other experienced users.
So it's like being part of a close-knit group of explorers charting new territory.
There
might be some bumps along the way.
But you're all in it together. There's a certain...
Let's bring this back to our listeners. If someone is listening to this and thinking, this Epinio thing sounds pretty cool. What are like the key takeaways they should walk away with?
If you're looking to streamline...
what makes Epinio unique?
Your application deployment process.
And potentially valuable for them.
Especially in Kubernetes environments. Epinio is definitely worth exploring. Its emphasis on flexibility, developer experience, and integration with existing ecosystems is really promising.
It's like they've taken all the lessons learned from Epinio.
Precisely.
And created something that truly empowers developers while still giving operations teams the control they need.
They found a way to balance those sometimes competing priorities.
Exactly.
And the use of standards like Helm and cloud-native build packs ensures that you're not locked into a proprietary solution.
That's a huge plus for me.
You're building on top of a solid foundation.
It gives you the freedom to choose the tools and services
of open source technologies.
That best fit your needs without being tied to a single vendor.
Now I have one final thought to leave our listener with. Given how rapidly the tech landscape is changing, what features would you prioritize?
That's a great question.
In a platform like Epinio for the future?
A few things come to mind immediately.
Okay.
First, I think deeper integration with serverless platforms would be incredibly valuable.
Okay.
Epinio is already great for containerized applications, but being able to seamlessly deploy and manage serverless functions alongside those containers would open up a world of possibilities.
That would be a game changer.
Yeah. Imagine being able to mix and match containers and serverless functions within the same application.
Yeah.
Choosing the best tool for the job without having to switch platforms or learn completely different workflows.
Yeah, totally.
And second, I think enhanced observability tools would be crucial as applications become more complex and distributed.
Right. Being able to trace requests, monitor performance, and identify bottlenecks becomes increasingly important.
Right.
Epinio already provides some basic logging and debugging tools.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see more advanced features in this area.
Like maybe integration with popular observability platforms.
Exactly.
Like Prometheus and Grafana.
Yeah, being able to visualize the health and performance of your applications in real time.
In real time, that would be incredibly powerful.
Absolutely. And finally, I think continued focus on security is paramount.
Of course.
As we move more of our applications and data to the cloud, security becomes even more critical.
Of course.
And Epinio already does a good job with role-based access control and integration with single sign-on providers.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see even more robust security features like built-in vulnerability scanning and automated security updates.
So a platform that's not just easy to use, but also secure by design, constantly evolving to address emerging threats and vulnerabilities.
Those are some great insights. I'm excited to see.
Yeah, this is really cool.
How Epinio evolves in the future.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're on the right track to create something truly special.
It does feel like a really significant shift.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Epinio is acknowledging that the one-size-fits-all approach to Pandas doesn't always work.
Exactly.
Instead, they're empowering developers to build their own personalized platforms tailored to their specific needs.
And that's what makes it so exciting.
And preferences.
Especially in the context of the cloud-native world.
Yeah.
Think about it. Cloud-native is all about flexibility, portability, and being able to deploy and manage applications across different environments.
Epinio
aligns perfectly with that philosophy.
Perfectly with that, yeah. Okay, I'm with you so far.
Yeah.
But let's play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay.
No technology is perfect.
Right.
What are some of the potential downsides?
That's a great question.
Or challenges that someone considering Epinio should be aware of?
It's always important to look at both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
One potential challenge, especially for those new to the Kubernetes world, could be the learning curve.
Okay.
While Epinio aims to simplify things, it's still built on top of Kubernetes, which has its own complexities.
So some familiarity with Kubernetes concepts would be helpful.
It's like,
even though Epinio tries to hide some of the complexity.
Having a car with automatic transmission, it's easier to drive than a stick shift.
Right.
But you still need to understand the basic principles of driving to operate it safely and effectively.
So it's not a magic bullet. You can't just jump in and expect to be
an Epinio expert overnight.
Time and effort to understand the underlying concepts and how everything fits together.
Okay.
But the good news is that the Epinio community is incredibly helpful. And there are tons of resources available online to help you get up to speed.
Speaking of the community, Epinio is still a relatively new project.
It is.
Compared to some of the more established players in the deployment space.
Yeah.
Does that present any challenges?
That's a valid concern.
In terms of community support?
Yeah, because Epinio is relatively new.
Or finding solutions to problems.
Its community might not be as large or as mature as some other open source projects. You might not find as many ready-made answers or solutions online.
Right.
And you might have to do a bit more digging or experimentation.
So you might have to be a bit more of a trailblazer.
Yeah. More willing to explore uncharted territory.
But the flip side of that is that the Epinio community is very welcoming and incredibly passionate about the project.
Yeah.
If you run into issues or have questions, you're likely to get quick and helpful responses from the core developers or other experienced users.
So there's that sense of camaraderie of being part of something new and exciting.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like a group of explorers charting a new course together.
And that spirit of collaboration and shared discovery can be incredibly rewarding.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the bigger picture.
Okay.
We've talked about the technical details.
Sure.
The potential challenges.
Yeah.
But what does Epinio's approach really mean for the future of application deployment?
That's a really interesting question.
How does it fit into this rapidly evolving landscape of cloud-native technologies?
And one that I think a lot of people in the industry are grappling with right now. We're seeing a major shift towards more flexible, modular, and developer-centric approaches to building and deploying applications.
So it's not just a technology, it's a philosophy. It's a way of thinking about how you develop and deploy software.
Empowering developers to take control.
In this new world of cloud native.
To choose the tools and platforms that best fit their needs.
Got it.
And to work in a way that's both productive and enjoyable.
That sounds pretty utopian.
I think the trend is definitely moving.
Are we really headed towards this developer-centric future?
In that direction.
Okay.
Clearly.
Or is that just wishful thinking?
More and more tools and platforms that prioritize developer experience, automation and self-service.
What's fueling this shift towards...
And that's driven by...
developer empowerment.
A number of factors.
Like what?
Well, one factor is the increasing complexity of applications and infrastructure.
Okay.
As applications become more distributed, microservices-based, and cloud-native, it's simply becoming too difficult for small teams to manage everything manually.
Right.
We need tools that automate and streamline the process.
So it's a necessity, not just a nice to have.
Exactly.
Okay.
Another factor is the increasing demand for speed and agility. In today's fast-paced business environment, companies need to be able to release new features and updates quickly and efficiently.
Of course.
That means having a development process that's streamlined and automated.
It's like the difference between a Formula One race car
and a
horse-drawn carriage.
Can iterate and experiment without having to jump through hoops.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You need the right tools to compete.
And I think another important factor
in today's market
is the growing recognition of the value of developer experience.
Okay.
Happy developers are productive developers, and productive developers build better software by creating tools and platforms that are enjoyable and easy to use.
Yeah.
We can unlock the full potential of our development teams.
So it's not just about making developers' lives easier.
Exactly.
It's about creating
it's about
a better product overall.
Creating a better overall product.
And delivering more value to customers.
Delivering more value to customers.
Okay.
And I think Epinio is a great example of a platform that understands this.
Yeah. It seems like they get it.
They've put a lot of thought into how to make the developer experience both powerful and enjoyable.
I think our listeners are starting to get a good sense of what Epinio is all about.
Yeah.
And why it's generating so much excitement.
Yeah.
But let's bring this back to a practical level.
Okay.
If someone is listening to this and thinking, okay, this Epinio thing sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
But how do I actually use it?
Right.
What are the key steps involved in deploying an application?
Of course, imagine you're a developer.
Can you walk us through a typical workflow?
Who has just finished writing the code for a new web application?
Okay.
You want to get this application deployed and running as quickly and easily as possible.
Yeah, as quickly as possible.
With Epinio, you have a couple options.
Let's hear them.
If you're comfortable with the command line, you can use the Epinio CLI.
Okay.
It provides a really intuitive and streamlined way to interact with the platform.
Okay.
First, you would use the Epinio login command to authenticate with your Epinio server.
So it's like logging into any other secure system.
Right.
You got to provide your credentials to prove who you are.
Once you're logged in, you would use the Epinio push command.
Epinio push,
to deploy your application. This command is incredibly versatile and can handle...
Okay, let's break down this Epinio push command.
A variety of scenarios.
What are the different ways you can use it?
Well, you can push code directly from your local file system.
Okay.
So if you have your application source code on your computer, you can simply point Epinio to the directory containing your code.
So no need to manually build container images.
And it will take care of everything else.
Or worry about complex configuration files.
Exactly.
Right.
Epinio leverages those cloud-native build packs we talked about earlier to automatically detect your application's programming language, build the necessary container image,
that's slick,
and deploy it to your Kubernetes cluster.
What other options are there?
You can also push code.
For deploying code with Epinio push.
From a Git repository. So if your code is hosted on GitHub, GitLab, or any other Git server, you can simply provide the repository URL to Epinio, and it will pull the code from there.
That's incredibly convenient.
Build the image and deploy the application.
What if you've already built a container image?
Absolutely.
For your application.
If you already have.
Can you still use Epinio push with the pre-built image?
A Docker image ready to go? You can tell Epinio push to use that image directly. Epinio will then deploy that image to your cluster.
So it's flexible enough
without having to rebuild it
to accommodate different workflows and levels of expertise, whether you prefer to work from source code or pre-built images. Epinio push has you covered.
But what about
those who aren't as comfortable with the command line? Does Epinio offer a more visual approach to deployment?
If you prefer a more graphical and interactive way to manage your deployments, Epinio also provides a web UI.
What does that look like?
It's a clean and intuitive interface that gives you a comprehensive overview of your application's services and deployments. You can easily browse through your existing applications.
So it's like having a dashboard?
View their status access logs
for your Epinio environment
and manage configuration settings.
But what about actually deploying new applications? How does that work?
Incredibly straightforward.
Through the web UI?
You would simply navigate to the application section of the UI.
What happens next?
And click on the Create Application button.
Okay.
You'll be presented with a simple form where you provide basic information about your application.
So you can still configure things.
Like its name.
Like environment variables and service bindings.
The source code location.
Through the web UI.
And
you don't have to resort to the command line for that.
Environment variables or configuration settings.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. The web UI gives you a lot of control over your deployments, and it's designed to be very user-friendly.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
It makes Epinio accessible to a wider range of users, regardless of their technical expertise or comfort level.
Regardless of their technical expertise.
To the command line.
Once you've filled out the application details,
what happens next?
Epinio takes over from there. It automatically pulls the code from the source location you specified, builds the necessary container image, and deploys the application to your Kubernetes cluster. You can watch the progress of the deployment right in the web UI. And you'll be notified when your application is up and running.
So both the CLI and the web UI offer like streamlined and intuitive ways to deploy applications with Epinio. But once the application is deployed, how do you manage it?
Once it's deployed.
How do you access logs? Update configurations?
Or
scale the application?
Up or down?
Epinio provides a rich set of tools.
Tell me more.
For managing and monitoring.
About these management tools.
Your applications, once they're deployed.
Well,
one of the key features is the ability to access application logs. You can view logs through the CLI or the web UI. And Epinio makes it easy to filter and search.
So if something goes wrong,
through logs.
Or you just want to see what's happening.
Find the information you need.
Inside your application, you can quickly get to those.
Exactly. And this can be incredibly helpful for debugging issues.
Relevant log messages.
Or understanding how your application is behaving in production.
Logging is crucial.
What
other management tool
it can also update
does Epinio offer?
Your application's configuration settings. Things like environment variables or resource limits. Through the CLI. Or the web UI. This lets you easily tweak the behavior of your application without having to redeploy it.
So you can fine-tune your application on the fly.
It is.
Adapting to changing needs or performance requirements.
And Epinio also provides tools.
That's very handy.
For scaling.
Scaling is essential.
Your application's up or down.
Especially as your user base grows. Or you experience like spikes in traffic.
You can easily increase.
How does Epinio handle scaling?
Or decrease the number of instances of your application running in the cluster through the CLI or the web UI. Epinio takes care of distributing traffic among the instances, ensuring high availability and responsiveness.
So if your application experiences a sudden surge in traffic,
exactly,
Epinio can automatically scale it up.
And it can do so
to handle that demand without any manual intervention.
So
scaling your application just becomes ensuring that your application remains responsive and available.
A simple point-click operation.
Exactly. Epinio abstracts away the complexity of managing deployments and replica sets in Kubernetes, making it much easier.
This is really cool.
For developers to handle the operational aspects.
It seems like Epinio has really thought through
of their application.
This entire application life cycle. From initial deployment to ongoing management and scaling.
That's a great question.
But I'm curious, are there any aspects of application deployment?
Epinio is a very comprehensive platform
that Epinio doesn't handle.
It's not meant to be a one-size-fits-all solution. It's primarily focused on deploying and managing stateless applications.
Can you give me an example of a stateless application?
Which are applications that don't need to store data persistently. Sure, a simple web application that displays content from a database, but doesn't store any user data locally.
So the application itself doesn't remember anything between requests?
Would be considered stateless.
It just relies on external services like databases to store any persistent data.
And Epinio excels at deploying and managing these types of applications. However, if you're dealing with stateful applications, which do require persistent storage, you might need to consider additional tools or services alongside Epinio.
So Epinio might not be the best choice for deploying something like...
Well, you can technically deploy stateful applications with a
database or a message queue.
It might.
Which inherently require persistent storage.
Not be the most straightforward or efficient approach.
So it's not that Epinio can't handle it.
You'd likely need to configure persistent volumes in Kubernetes.
It's just that it might not be.
And manage the life cycle of those volumes separately.
The ideal tool for the job.
Exactly. It's important to choose the right tool for the task at hand.
It's all about understanding the strengths and limitations.
And while Epinio is fantastic for stateless applications
of a tool and using it appropriately,
there might be other tools or platforms.
Speaking of strengths and limitations,
better suited for managing stateful workloads.
Let's revisit the concept of security for a moment. We touched on it earlier when we talked about authentication and multi-tenancy. But security is such a crucial aspect
security
of any application deployment.
Paramount, and Epinio takes it very seriously.
Especially in the cloud.
It incorporates security considerations into every aspect of the platform.
How does Epinio approach security in like a broader sense?
From the initial design.
What measures are in place to protect?
To the implementation of specific features.
Applications and data.
Of course, one key aspect is the use of role-based access control, which we discussed earlier. By limiting access to resources.
By limiting access to resources based on user roles and permissions. Epinio helps prevent unauthorized access.
That's right.
And make sure that only authorized personnel can actually make changes to applications or configurations. So it's like having like different levels of security clearance within an organization. Not everyone has access to the same information or the same level of control.
And Epinio goes beyond just basic role-based access control. It also integrates with external identity providers like DEX, which allows you to leverage existing authentication systems like your corporate Active Directory or single sign-on solutions.
So you can centralize your user management and apply consistent security policies.
This eliminates
your entire organization.
The need to create and manage separate user accounts within Epinio, simplifying administration and reducing the risk of security vulnerabilities.
Centralized authentication is definitely a huge plus from a security perspective. What other security features
does Epinio offer?
Also pays close attention to the security of the underlying infrastructure. It leverages the security features of Kubernetes, such as network policies and pod security policies.
Can you elaborate on those a little bit?
To isolate and protect applications and data.
For those of us who aren't Kubernetes experts, what are network policies?
Network policies in Kubernetes
and pod security policies
allow you to control how pods...
And how do they contribute to security?
Which are the basic building blocks of applications in Kubernetes. Can communicate with each other. And with external networks. You can use network policies to create firewalls that restrict traffic.
Based on source and destination, IP addresses, ports, protocols.
So it's like having a security guard.
That's a great analogy.
At the entrance to your application. Checking IDs, making sure that only authorized visitors
and pod security policies
are allowed in.
Provide even more fine-grained control over the security of individual pods. You can use them to restrict the capabilities of containers running within pods, preventing them from accessing sensitive resources or escalating privileges.
So it's like setting limits on what those visitors can do once they're inside.
And Epinio makes it easy to define and apply these policies, ensuring that your applications are protected from unauthorized access and malicious activity.
This all sounds incredibly robust.
Yeah.
It seems like Epinio is really committed to providing a secure platform for deploying and managing applications.
Yeah. Never a one-time thing.
But security is an ongoing process, right?
Yeah, it requires.
It's not something constant vigilance.
You set and forget.
And adaptation.
How does Epinio address that need?
Epinio recognizes this.
For continuous security improvements and updates.
And takes a proactive approach to security updates and vulnerability management. The core developers are constantly monitoring for new security threats and vulnerabilities. And they release regular updates to address any potential issues.
So it's like having like a dedicated security team.
Exactly.
Constantly patrolling your application.
Yeah, and those updates.
And infrastructure looking for.
Are usually very easy to apply.
Any weaknesses or potential breaches?
You can typically update your Epinio installation with just a few commands or clicks. Ensuring that you're always running the latest.
It's great to hear.
And most secure version of the platform.
It takes a lot of the burden off developers.
Right. In addition to operations teams.
Those proactive measures.
Letting them focus on their core responsibilities.
Epinio also encourages...
Without having to be security experts themselves.
Best practices for secure application development and deployment.
Can you give me an example of what you mean by best practices?
Sure.
Yeah.
Epinio encourages developers to follow the principle of least privilege. This means applications should only have access to the resources they absolutely need to function. By limiting access to sensitive data and systems, you can significantly reduce the risk of a security breach.
So it's like giving your application a key card.
That's a perfect analogy.
But that only unlocks the specific doors it needs to access rather than giving it a master key that unlocks every door in the building.
And Epinio makes it easy to implement this principle by providing granular control over permissions and access control lists.
This is all incredibly reassuring.
Yeah.
It sounds like Epinio is a platform.
Like Epinio has done.
That really takes security seriously.
Really good job of balancing.
And provides like a comprehensive set of tools and practices to help developers build and deploy secure applications.
That's a usability.
But let's be honest, security often comes at the cost of convenience.
That's a valid point.
Are there any trade-offs developers need to be aware of?
And it's true that
when it comes to Epinio's security features,
sometimes security measures can introduce additional complexity or friction to the development process. But Epinio has done a really good job.
So how have they achieved that balance?
Of balancing security with usability. The integration with external identity providers is a great example. By leveraging existing authentication systems, developers don't have to create and manage separate user accounts for Epinio. This not only enhances security.
So it's a win-win.
But also simplifies.
Increased security without sacrificing convenience.
So it's a win-win situation. Increased security.
Yeah.
Without sacrificing convenience.
And Epinio's approach to security updates is another good example.
Right.
The updates are designed to be easy to apply.
So developers can stay up to date with the latest security patches without having to jump through hoops or disrupt their workflow.
It sounds like Epinio has really found a sweet spot between...
Yeah, they've managed to create a platform that's both robust and accessible.
Security and usability.
I agree. They've done a really impressive job.
They've created a platform that's both...
of making security an integral part of the platform.
Robust and accessible.
Without making it a burden for developers.
Okay, I think our listener now has a solid understanding of Epinio's approach to security.
Yeah.
Both in terms of like specific features and overall philosophy.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears one last time and talk about performance.
Sure.
Security is crucial, but so is speed and efficiency.
Performance is definitely.
How does Epinio perform in terms of like...
a key consideration.
resource consumption and application responsiveness.
For any deployment platform.
Yeah.
And Epinio has been designed with efficiency in mind from the ground up. Yeah. Epinio itself has a very lightweight footprint.
Okay.
It runs as a set of containers within your Kubernetes cluster.
Okay.
And it doesn't consume a lot of resources.
So it's not going to bog down your cluster or eat up all your CPU and memory.
And the applications you deploy with Epinio also tend to be very efficient.
Right.
The use of cloud-native build packs helps optimize container images, making them smaller and faster to load.
Smaller and faster loading images. That sounds like recipe for better performance.
Right.
What about application responsiveness?
Epinio leverages...
how quickly do applications deployed with Epinio...
the power and scalability of Kubernetes...
respond to user requests?
To ensure that applications are highly responsive.
Okay.
Kubernetes is designed to distribute traffic efficiently across multiple instances of an application, ensuring that requests are handled quickly.
So if your application experiences a sudden surge in traffic,
even under heavy load,
Epinio can automatically scale it up to handle the increased demand.
And it can do so.
Without any manual intervention.
Without any manual intervention.
That's incredibly powerful.
Ensuring that your application remains responsive and available.
It takes a lot of...
even during peak usage periods.
Stress and complexity out of managing application performance.
Yeah, no technology is perfect.
But let's get real for a second.
While Epinio itself...
no technology is perfect.
Is designed to be very efficient.
Are there any performance considerations?
The performance of your applications?
Or potential bottlenecks that developers should be aware of when using Epinio?
Will ultimately depend on a number of factors.
Like what are some of the things that can influence performance?
Well, the efficiency of your code is obviously a major factor.
So garbage in, garbage out.
If your code is poorly written or inefficient, no deployment platform can magically make it perform well.
So you still need to write good code.
Right. You still need to write good code.
And follow best practices.
And follow
performance optimization.
Best practices for performance optimization.
Okay.
But assuming your code is well written, the next thing to consider is the resources you allocate to your application.
You mean like
CPUs,
memory, disk space.
And disk space.
Okay.
If you don't allocate enough resources to your application, it's going to run slowly.
So it's like trying to run a high-performance sports car on a dirt road.
Regardless of how efficient Epinio is.
It doesn't matter how powerful the engine is.
That's a great analogy.
If the terrain isn't suitable.
And Epinio gives you a lot of control over resource allocation.
Okay.
You can specify the minimum and maximum resources you want to allocate to your application.
Okay.
And Kubernetes will ensure that it gets what it needs within those bounds.
It allows developers to fine-tune their application's resource usage.
Yeah.
To achieve the optimal balance between performance and cost.
Exactly.
What about
external dependency?
External dependency.
How can those impact
over like databases or
applications deployed with Epinio?
Can definitely have a significant impact on performance.
Okay.
If your application relies on a slow or unreliable external service, it's going to suffer regardless.
So it's like having like a super fast delivery truck.
How efficient.
But the package is stuck in customs.
Your code or your Epinio configuration isn't, it doesn't matter how quickly the truck can drive.
Exactly.
But the package is delayed.
And this is where careful planning and design come in.
Okay.
You need to choose your external dependencies wisely.
Okay.
And ensure that they can meet the performance requirements of your application.
So it's not just about your application in isolation.
Right.
It's about the entire ecosystem
you manage
of services and dependencies.
Those dependencies.
That your application relies on.
Effectively.
Right.
Remember the service catalog we discussed earlier?
Yeah.
It lets you easily provision and bind to external services, making it easier to integrate them into your applications.
And presumably those services are themselves
ideally
optimized for performance and reliability.
But it's always a good idea
to
do your due diligence
and
make sure that the services you're relying on meet your performance expectations.
So it's like choosing the right ingredients for a recipe.
That's a great analogy.
You want to make sure that all the components work together harmoniously to create a delicious and satisfying final product.
That's what Epinio is all about, providing the tools and the framework to help developers build and deploy.
This has been a really enlightening discussion
about performance applications,
about Epinio's performance characteristics and the factors that can influence the speed and responsiveness of applications deployed on the platform. But let's shift gears one last time and talk about the human element. We've talked a lot about the technical aspects of Epinio, but what about the people who use it? What's the developer experience like?
Developer experience is incredibly important.
Is it a tool that's enjoyable to use?
And Epinio recognizes that.
Or does it feel clunky and frustrating?
They've put a lot of effort into creating a platform that's not just powerful, but also enjoyable to use.
So give me some specific examples.
One key aspect
of how Epinio prioritizes developer experience
is the intuitive and streamlined nature of the CLI and the web UI. Both interfaces are designed to be easy to understand and navigate.
So it's not like wading through like a dense technical manual.
Even for developers.
Or trying to decipher like cryptic error messages.
Who are new to the platform? Not at all. The CLI commands are logically named and well documented. And the web UI is visually appealing and well organized.
That's a relief. No one likes wrestling with a tool that feels like it's fighting against them.
The speed and simplicity.
What other aspects of the developer experience?
Of the deployment process is another major plus.
Stand out to you.
The Epinio push command.
It's that easy button experience we were talking about.
Really does make it incredibly easy to get your application up and running.
Developers can just focus on writing code
in minutes
and see their work come to life quickly.
Exactly. And the automated build process,
an effortless thing,
powered by cloud-native build packs, further enhances the developer experience. Developers don't have to worry about configuring complex build pipelines or troubleshooting build errors.
So it's like having like a personal build engineer.
Epinio takes care of all that behind the scenes.
Who handles all of the tedious...
That's a great analogy.
And error-prone aspects of like building and packaging your application.
And this frees developers to focus on the creative and innovative...
That's what we want.
...aspects of software development.
Empower developers who can unleash their full potential.
And I think Epinio is doing a great job of creating an environment where that can happen.
I think our listener now has a really good understanding of Epinio's approach to performance. The factors that can influence it. But let's bring it back to our listener one more time. If someone's listening to this and thinking, Epinio sounds pretty cool. But how do I know if it's the right tool for me?
That's a great question.
What are some key indicators that Epinio
And there are a good fit.
Definitely some key indicators to look for.
For a developer or an organization?
First, if you're working with Kubernetes. Either already using it or planning to adopt it. Epinio is definitely worth considering.
So if Kubernetes is part of your technology stack.
Absolutely. It simplifies the process.
Epinio can make your life a lot easier.
Of deploying and managing applications in Kubernetes. Abstracting away a lot of the complexity.
Kubernetes is a good starting point.
And providing a more developer-friendly interface.
What else should someone consider? If you're looking for a platform that emphasizes flexibility and customization, Epinio is a great choice. Remember, it's all about that individual platform developer concept.
So if you want to be able to tailor the platform.
You're not locked into
your specific needs.
A rigid one-size-fits-all solution.
And preferences. Epinio gives you the freedom to do so.
You can choose the tools, the services, and the configurations that best fit your workflow and your application's requirements.
Freedom of choice is always good.
Yeah.
What other factors might make Epinio a good fit?
Passionate about open source and want to be part of a vibrant and collaborative community.
We've talked a lot about the Epinio community.
Epinio is a great option.
And it definitely seems like a very welcoming...
It is, and the open source nature of Epinio.
And supportive group of people who are passionate about pushing the boundaries of application deployment.
You have full access to the source code.
Yeah.
You can contribute to the project's development. And you can benefit from the collective knowledge and experience.
So it's not just about like using the tool, it's about...
Of the community.
Being part of a movement.
Exactly. It's about joining a group of like-minded individuals who are passionate about building the future of software development and deployment.
Okay. I think our listener now has a good sense of what Epinio is all about.
Yeah.
And the types of individuals and organizations that it might be a good fit for.
Yeah.
But let's zoom out for a moment and talk about the broader impact of Epinio.
Okay.
We've focused a lot on the technical details and the practical considerations.
Sure.
But what are like the potential implications of this approach to application deployment?
Those are big questions.
On a larger scale.
And it's hard to predict.
How might Epinio influence the future of software development?
The future with certainty.
And the way we think about building and deploying applications.
Yeah. But I think Epinio represents a significant step forward.
In what way? How is Epinio changing the game?
In the evolution of application deployment?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's challenging the traditional notions of what a Epinio should be.
Okay.
It's moving away from the monolithic one-size-fits-all approach and embracing a more modular, customizable...
But it's like, and developer-centered.
Put in the power back.
Exactly.
It's giving developers...
In the hands of developers.
The freedom to choose the tools and technologies they want to use, the workflows they want to follow.
That's a pretty radical shift.
And the environments they want to deploy to.
From the days of rigid.
It is, and I think...
Vendor-locked platforms that dictated
how we
towards developer empowerment is going to have a profound impact on the software industry as a whole.
How? So what are some of the ripple effects?
Well, I think it's going to lead to... of this movement.
A more diverse and innovative ecosystem of tools and technologies developers will have.
So we'll see a proliferation.
Our freedom.
To experiment with different approaches.
Each tailored.
And find the
to a specific niche or workflow.
That best fit their needs.
Okay.
So we'll see a proliferation of specialized tools.
Okay.
Each tailored to a specific niche or workflow.
Yeah, and I think this will ultimately...
I think this will
benefit everyone.
Ultimately benefit everyone.
Right.
Developers will be
more productive and happier. Companies will be able to build better software faster.
To build better software faster.
And end users will benefit from. More innovative and user-friendly applications.
From more innovative and user-friendly applications.
It sounds like a virtuous cycle.
Like a virtuous cycle.
But are there any downsides to this? That's a good question.
You know, this shift towards a more decentralized and fragmented landscape of tools and technology.
Associated with any major change.
Okay.
One potential challenge.
Okay, what is it?
Is the risk of increased complexity.
A complexity for the developers or for the industry as a whole.
So many different tools and technologies to choose from.
Okay.
It can be difficult for developers to keep up with the latest trends.
So there's that potential for...
to make informed decisions.
Fragmentation and incompatibility.
About which tools are best suited for their needs.
Yeah.
And for the industry as a whole,
it
can be challenging to maintain interoperability and standards across such a diverse ecosystem.
Yeah, but I think the benefits of this shift...
So there is a potential for fragmentation and incompatibility.
Towards developer empowerment outweigh the risks.
There is, and...
It's about finding the right balance.
That's something we need to be mindful of.
Encouraging innovation and diversity.
But I think the benefits...
But also promoting collaboration and interoperability.
Of this shift towards developer empowerment outweigh the risks. It's about finding...
And I think the open source community has a crucial role to play in this.
The right balance, encouraging innovation and diversity, while also promoting collaboration and interoperability.
Open source projects like Epinio can help bridge those gaps.
Exactly. And I think
between the different tools and technologies,
the open source community has a crucial role to play in this.
Yeah.
Open source projects like Epinio can help bridge the gaps.
So open source is the glue that holds it all together.
Between different tools and technologies, promoting collaboration and sharing best practices.
I'm really excited about the potential.
So open source is the glue
of this new era of application deployment.
That holds it all together.
Where developers have more control.
I think so. Open source encourages
more choices,
transparency,
and more opportunities to innovate.
Collaboration.
And I think Epinio is leading the way.
And a shared sense of ownership. And those values are essential for building a healthy and sustainable ecosystem for software development.
This has been an amazing deep dive.
And a point into Epinio.
I agree. It's a project that's worth watching.
I've personally learned a ton, and I'm sure our listeners did too.
And one that has the potential to change.
So if our listener is intrigued by Epinio,
the way we think about building and deploying software,
and wants to learn more for years to come,
where should they go?
The Epinio website.
What are the best resources for getting started?
Is a great starting point.
Yeah?
They have excellent documentation, tutorials, and a blog that keeps you updated on the latest development.